Hey everybody, welcome. We're inside the Indiegogo. Hi.
Hello.
We're inside the Indiegogo office, just in one of our conference rooms in San Francisco, and we're coming at you via Google Hangouts on Air to talk about something very near and dear to my and Indiegogo's heart, raising money for Burning Man. So we have with us today 3 panelists, all of whom are experienced campaigners, either in the throes of running a campaign currently or ran a campaign earlier in 2014. Hey everybody, welcome. Just so you know, we're using this technology, Google Hangouts on Air, which allows us to communicate live with you, but there's also about a 30-second delay. So I'm saying things, I've said them about 30 seconds in the past. In order for moderating, you guys can just contribute comments, and if you have questions or, like, I can't hear this, use a mechanism that's on YouTube that's just underneath the video to say that you can't hear or to add any questions. And then Josh McClain, who is our lovely assistant today, will be helping us out with going through those comments, and then we're going to have about 10 minutes at the end of the conversation to go through, and if you guys have left any questions, hopefully to address them. Yeah, so if you're having any issues, if the volume is bad or something, we're trying this for the first time, so let us know via the comments and we'll work it out. Yeah, so without further ado, we have Dylan Modell over here on this side. He's joining us from the East Bay Burners Camp and representing the Kraken campaign, which ran on Indiegogo earlier this year, and he'll be telling us more about shortly. And then we have Wright, who's joining us from Janky Barge, and that's an art car. They ran their campaign earlier this year. And Nina is also an Indiegogo employee and does marketing, communications, and events for us. And then finally, we have Asako Miyakawa, who's joining us from the Phage camp, who's actually an active campaigner right now for Dr. Brainlove. And then I'm Maggie Ronan. I work at Indiegogo, and I also ran my own campaign for the first time this year for my Burning Man camp, Sugat Shalom. So yeah, I guess I'm going to start off with just a little introduction about Indiegogo in case you're not familiar. We're a crowdfunding company. We're the world's funding engine, and we empower passionate people and organizations to fund what matters to them. So anyone who has an idea for anything can pretty much get on our site and launch a campaign quickly. At that point, we provide you with the tools and the inspiration, and then we want you guys to get out there and connect with your audiences about your idea. And so we've had, we do lots of informational sessions and trainings on how to do crowdfunding, but we've never really done anything specifically for Burning Man before. And we've noticed we have a lot of Burning Man campaigns, not just our own employees, but for other camps as well. And we feel like Burning Man is a really natural fit with crowdfunding in terms of playing into the sharing economy, and it's really community-based support for ideas and embracing the creative spirit and kind of limitless in terms of what you can do. Yeah, so we're really happy that you guys were able to join us, and without further ado, so the structure of our talk is just going to be going through the campaign process. So typically when we're giving people advice on how to run a campaign, we talk about it in terms of the pitch, the video, setting things up at the beginning, the perks, the goal that you set, and then promotion. So we're going to go through that with you guys for what you guys did at the beginning of your campaigns, when you were setting things up pre-launch, and then after that, go into the actual period of when you're running a campaign, your experience with that, and then afterwards, fulfillment, and then just general discussion. And then after that, we'll address any questions that are coming up via comment.
There are no questions yet.
There are no questions yet, but you guys who are watching, feel free to leave comments. Yeah, so to start off with, to get the conversation going, I introduced you guys a little bit, but I was hoping that we could just each take around a minute to kind of give the background on who you are, your relationship with Burning Man and your camp, and then a little background on your campaign, what you're raising money for, when you when your campaign was running, things like that. So Dylan, do you want to lead us off?
Absolutely. Well, I'm part of the East Bay Burners. I've been part of the East Bay Burners since January. Before that, I've been to Burning Man 2 times. Worked on probably a dozen art projects, just on and off fly, just going off, exploring my creative self. And I got hooked up with the East Bay Burners and just started saying yes to things. And then now I'm in charge of one of their projects. We have another project that I helped also ran an Indiegogo campaign called the Alien Siege Machine. It's a substantially bigger project. It's huge. It's like 50 feet tall. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, they ran their own. And so I'm doing the Kraken mostly though. And I have been running all facets of it for a while. Yeah. And we have a camp this year called Ebb and Glow. And that's hopefully going to be a regional event that we host in Oakland. Yeah, that's the East Bay Burners. That's what we're all about.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm Nina, and I'm with the Janky Barge. I've been around Burning Man for a really long time. I grew up in San Francisco. I like to plug in that I'm a native. So the cool thing about getting hooked up with Janky Barge, which I've known for about a few years, is just like the energy and creativity of just everyone who's in the camp. And so this was a year where we had to make a big decision about upgrading the barge or potentially not having it go to Burning Man. And so we knew that we had to have like some kind of funding mechanism other than our usual fundraisers. And so that's where we decided to go with the Indiegogo campaign. And so I encouraged like a lot of our core team from Janky Barge to come to an Indiegogo lab, which we had a few months ago, and so that kind of was the birth of our Indiegogo campaign, which ended up being really successful, and now we're working on the barge, so it's can't wait to talk about the experience and kind of unpack it a little bit.
Awesome, thanks Nina. And Asako?
Hi, my name is Asako, and I'm working on Dr. Brainlove, which is an art car made by this group called the Phage. And Dr. Brainlove is a climbable interactive brain that's mounted on biofuel modified bus, so it runs on veggie oils. I actually brought a little model. I hope you can, you can see it. It's actually 3D printed. So this is the brain. It's based on one of our camp members' brain scan, and this is the bus. It used to be a school bus, but we chopped the top
That's
part of it,
cool.
and it's sort of like this. And this is actually exactly what we have right now in a workshop in Oakland. So I'm running Indiegogo campaign. Yeah, that's an Indie. So I'm running an Indiegogo campaign to fund Dr. Brainlove. So we're hoping to bring this vehicle to the playa for the first time this year. So our campaign is trying to raise actually $26,000. 7 days left and about 87% of a fundraising goal as of today. So I'm right in the middle of the process, and I hope that I can share some experience or something that I learned from the campaign with all of you guys. And I have been to Burning Man twice, and this is my third year.
Awesome. Yeah, and again, thank you guys so much for coming. Really excited for this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had said this to these guys off camera already via email, but just to remind you, like my job in addition to moderating is timekeeping. So we have to end at 4 today. So just if at any point I'm kind of like, we're moving the conversation along. It's not because I'm not super excited to hear everything, but just because we want to like cover all the aspects of the campaigner experience and have but a short time to do it.
It's fair.
Just start the music.
Yeah.
Or throw the brain.
I was going to tell Josh to bring a cane.
Maybe not throw the brain.
So I was going to tell you to bring a cane.
Oh, I would be happy to bring a cane.
Yeah.
I wouldn't actually do that.
Cool. So I guess first of all, how did you guys decide to choose, or how did you choose to do an Indiegogo campaign or like a crowdfunding campaign in general? Was this your primary way of raising funds, or did you do sort of like getting some money from one area and some money from crowdfunding? Dylan, would you like to start with that one?
Sure. Well, I think that we've had history. Well, East Bay Burners had a history of running Indiegogo campaigns. I think last year was the only year when we didn't. It was more like an email out, like a PayPal donate link. I think that we just wanted to open it up to. We have such a large community. I mean, East Bay Burners is, you know, a tight group of people that are surrounded by hundreds of burners from the East Bay. You know, it's a generic term. So we thought, you know, let's run another Indiegogo. I pushed for it because I've run crowdfunding campaigns in the past. So I had some experience with it. And now, I mean, primary source of funding, I would say, yeah, I mean, yes, it's one of two. So we have all these events that we throw, and then we have the Indiegogo, and I think that we kind of almost match funds with the two. And in previous years, I think the Indiegogo has been more of an afterthought
And,
budget.
and this year it's more of a primary method of raising money?
Yeah, it's the one of two. We have just these two primary methods, yeah. And also, I mean, we wanted to have swag. Just wanted to get our necklaces, you know?
Yeah, totally. You and your contributors, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Cool. And Mina, how about you guys? Did you do any other fundraising? Or,
Yeah, so typically, like, we have a whole calendar of things that we do. It's just, it was that component where we needed the extra money to upgrade the barge. And so, because our typical fundraising is like just the general maintenance and all the camp stuff that we needed kind of put together for Burning Man, this was like kind of that bigger lift that we needed for the barge. So that's why we're like, okay, we just need to do this. And so that was determined sometime late last year, but like we started committing to it, I think, in February of this year.
cool. Asako?
Yes. We decided to go with crowdfunding because, well, so back up a little bit. So we did get startup funds from the camp members. So the Phage is a group, quite a large group actually, and it's a group of scientists, engineers, and artists. We have a large camp usually on the Esplanade around 5 o'clock. I guess this year we're going to be at 5 o'clock again. And we have about 125 people. So we first asked those core camp to give us the startup fund. So we collected around $4,000 and with the extended community as well. But we went with crowdfunding for two reasons, I think. One, it was not enough money to do the project. And the second one, I think, is more important. So we want to use this Dr. Brainlove project as a science outreach project of the playa as well. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to get the word out and get people excited, people who are not necessarily already part of our community. But so we thought that having a crowdfunding campaign would be a really good way to have people know about Dr. Brainlove.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we see a lot of times, when people are doing crowdfunding campaigns, you think like, I need to get this chunk of money, which is definitely true and a really large, great part of crowdfunding. But additionally, it's like that connecting with the community and being able to get the word
Yeah.
word out about what you're doing and connect with people who are like never considered your idea but are like, that sounds really awesome. I'm like, whoa, a playground brain.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, and as for the platform, we did consider other platforms as well. So we looked at Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and also Crowdfunding.
Mm-hmm.
And I think ultimately the reason we went with Indiegogo was your flex funding options.
Mm-hmm.
So we needed a lot of money as we go because we started our campaign about 21 days ago. And we are already building, so we just assembled this brain from ground during the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And this brain itself cost like $6,000. We cut the top of the bus, and we needed all the tools, and we need safety gears, and we need food to feed the workers, and so all those expenses. Yeah. Yeah. So so if we did like something like Kickstarter or like the what's the other option called? At the end, you get the money option.
Like all or nothing or fixed
Oh,
funding.
yeah, fixed funding.
We call fixed
so
or flexible funding.
yeah, fixed or flexible. So flexible funding is nice because the money comes in as the campaign goes on, so it can actually fund the project as the campaign is running.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's something to think about actually. Like in terms of like if anyone is considering running a crowdfunding campaign for like this year Burning Man, it's kind of a cool thing that if you were to launch a campaign now, you know, like there are options so you can kind of like get the money stream to start coming in rather than waiting till the end of the campaign.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And just a tip too, like if you are doing the flex funding, you want to make sure that you're enabling PayPal or recommending that people do it through PayPal, so then you get your money. Because if it's for the credit card, you have to wait until after the campaign.
Exactly. I mean, I've been spending the money as fast as it's been coming in. You know? Only on good things, okay? So I would also like to add that the reason it's a primary thing for us this year is because in previous years we were the core group, and for Burning Man Core, they give you this grant, and they pay for all these things, and this year they don't have core groups, they're doing the soup. So we were faced with this thing that we have all this other expenses now, and so that's why this became another primary source of cash flow. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we often see people doing kind of like a split of, you know, I have this project that I'm going to be doing, and I have, you know, I'm rich, so half of it I'm spending. Most people don't have that, but you know, some sort of like chunk of money that you have that you're able to fund with, and then you know, a different portion of the pie coming from like some other kind of funding, and then like a certain amount, like a grant, for example, and then some amount that you earmark as like the amount that you're expecting to get from a crowdfunding campaign. I mean, for a Burning Man camp, an example is like camp dues versus what you would get from crowdfunding, even if you're not doing like an art project, or sorry, art grant application.
Is this year like the most Burning Man campaigns that you've seen?
I mean, we're like, our platform is growing tremendously, as is crowdfunding in general. So I haven't like culled through and looked at all of them, but I would have to say yes. Yeah. So like in general, like we just have more campaigns than we had last year. But also, I think the word is really getting out in the Burning Man community about crowdfunding, and you know, you see like in Jackrabbit Speaks, the newsletter, there's a section that's support a project, and there's a section on the Burning Man website actually where people have their campaign cards from like various, not just Indiegogo, but various crowdfunding sites. So yeah, I mean, I think it's like a super good fit in terms of ethos and just, you know, that community aspect of getting people to support your project. So short answer, yes, there are more than before, but we've observed this for a few years that we've had
my theory is that
campaigns.
My theory has to be that a lot of people this year are dealing with the fact that, you know, you have all these regional communities that usually are on the core grant. They get the core grant every year, and this year they're not. So there was definitely a panic, like between us and South Bay and I talked with Portland Core, and there was a panic, like, oh God, how are we going to even deal with this? Like, what, we're not getting anything?
Move some things around.
Yeah.
Um,
But Larry Harvey did that just to figure this out. So.
Cool. Well, so.
Can I?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to add to the previous discussion, because I think it's helpful, is disbursement options.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that's very common in Burning Man community is that it's not an official organization. So it's not non-profit nor like have some kind of organization status.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing we had to deal with when we were launching the campaign was to think about the tax implication. And so for instance, if you receive payments through PayPal and if it exceeds like $20,000 and 200 payments, I think there's a tax form that you have to fill out or something. So that is like a little bit of problematic because our campaign doesn't have like official accountant or the person who is receiving all the money. So an individual has to be in that position. So like we actually looked around at quite a bit around that issue to see which platform suits our need the best as well. So that's something you might want to consider if you're starting the campaign now.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like, thinking through the payment aspect of things is important, and it differs pretty significantly depending on what your organization status is. You know, if you're a business or registered nonprofit or an individual, and then also whether you're using like fiscal sponsorship or PayPal only or PayPal and credit card. You know, we have tons of examples of all of this, so it's not like super like insurmountable. It sounds very complex, but it's definitely worth thinking about at the outset of your campaign, as is as much as possible, I would say, which is why I want to talk a little bit more about the pre-launch experience in terms of the actual like, execution of the campaign or in the planning stage of it. So when we're at the point where we're like, okay, we're doing a crowdfunding campaign, it's going to be on Indiegogo. You know, I guess first, how far before your launch date did you like, start that, like, you know, thinking about getting the campaign together? And then if you could just walk through a little bit about your process in terms of like the team, how many people you had working with you or currently have working with you, and how you divided up the labor. You know, I think we see things like all across the gamut in terms of like basically like essentially one person being like the point person and doing most of the stuff with like a little delegation or very little versus like, you know, we like to recommend having as many team members as possible and dividing up things like having maybe one official like fundraising coordinator, but a video producer and someone whose job it is to like own the pitch and someone who's like perhaps like a perk coordinator. I know with my campaign we sourced perks from people within our camp who offered things kind of in-kind perks, which is something that we recommend to people. You know, it's a good way to participate. Like, I don't have a lot of time to actually like run this campaign with you guys, or I don't have like money to contribute to the campaign, but I am an artist. I make these really cool brain sculptures, or you know, I make posters or like something that could be like a cool perk. And we often see people like offering these. So that's having a person to coordinate all of that, and then perhaps the fulfillment at the end also, and various other roles, communications. So yeah, just I guess what did the planning stage timeline look like, and how did you break up the team who was working your campaign? And we can start with Nina first this time, because I'm picking on Dylan.
That sounds
we're
great.
mixing it up.
It's great to mix it up, and I'm really excited about the pre-launch portion. I plan for a living, so I get really excited about these kind of things, so make sure to take notes. We had decided that we needed a core team. So we had about 4 or 5 people who were part of like this group to bring everything together. And I think because we had like a really good like in sync energy. Like we all kind of gravitated towards like being good at particular things. So so like I would set the timeline and be like, okay, like we want to launch like, you know, probably, you know, a few weeks out at one of our fundraisers, so then we can promote our campaign. And then being like, okay, we need a video, and then from there, it's like part of our core group. It was all very lucky, but we had a talented guy who did video production, and so he did our screen writing or whatever that is, that script for us. And then we also were like, okay, how are we gonna like structure what the weeks are gonna look like? Like our goal is to make sure that like every Thursday that we launch a perk. And so just to kind of back up a little bit, when we had decided to do the Indiegogo campaign from a small group perspective, we held a team meeting, and we let everyone know, and we got everyone's input on like what kind of perks they wanted and all of those different kind of things, and just like getting everyone's input, a brain dump of like what everyone thought like the campaign should look like. And then we got into our smaller group and we started prioritizing things, and like really started like nailing down, okay, what perks are we looking into, and then like kind of getting pricing for that and all of that. So we really try to be thoughtful about like knowing that if we were going to offer perks, like we'd have to like know how much it was going to cost as part of our campaign, and then also just like what the schedule was going to look like week by week, and making sure that we were setting meetings to meet internally, like the 5 of us every week, while letting our board know, because we're set up like an LLC, so just so that they knew, but they were like, we trust you, you guys are the fundraising team, get it going. And so a lot of it was just setting that framework and that timeline, and then week by week we would get more into the details. But that was basically our launch campaign. And about like our fundraising target, like we knew that like it would cost about like $6,000 or $7,000 to get all of the work that we needed to get done for the Barge, but I think that was underestimating it. So I think that's why we decided 8,000, just because there are fees, you know, attributed to the site. So we wanted to take that in consideration, and then just any additional money that we might have like ended up eating the cost in terms of perks. We wanted that buffer, and we actually ended up making 9,200, which is great because then like it was just be able to cover like any additional costs, or like I think we're still looking into like a speaker system, so just like having a little bit more flexibility to kind of have like a stretch goal and go above and beyond that.
Awesome. And Asako, how about you in terms of the timeline for before the launch, and how you divided up the work for the team?
Yeah, so I think we started planning about a little over a month before the actual launch date. We actually had to delay it once because we had about a month and then we're not quite ready. And I think your Indiegogo's advice of don't launch when you don't feel completely ready is actually a very valid one. So it's totally worth delaying a little bit if you don't feel quite ready. So what we did was we have a listserv. So we first brainstormed what kind of campaign we're going to run and which platform to go with. And then once we had enough momentum to like start writing the campaign, we started meeting once a week in San Francisco. So whoever can come would join us at night and then brainstorm for Dr. Brainlove, and also the perk and the timeline of like what type of announcement comes when, and also how much we're going to raise and how much we're spending on actual manufacturing and handling. And the campaign duration was another thing we discussed. So it was those meetings and also like lots of email back and forth. And I would say we had about 5 people who are core members who had like a shared document and then made the main pitch text. We had one amazing videographer, his name is Tom, and we just recruited him from our community because he was interested. in the project, but he was kind of new. But like we really needed a videographer, and we just grabbed him, and he made our amazing pitch video. And we had like a Flickr album where we went through and took all the representative picture of our community. So we really wanted to emphasize the science because we're a science camp. We do lots of outreach, which is not necessarily so the science outreach part is kind of like the camp itself is like about science. And also Dr. Brainlove didn't occur, wasn't in existence in like the last couple of years. We wanted people to know what kind of activities that we did to bring science to the playa. So we collected a lot of background information for people to know who we are before we actually, when we introduced this idea of making Dr. Brainlove. So that part took like quite a bit because we went through a lot of edits. So that part took a little bit of time, and so that was kind of before the launch. And once we have the draft, we release it to the listserv, get feedback, and then reflect feedback, revise, and then we launched. So we launched in 2 phases. So we had soft launch and hard launch. So we wanted to get to about 50% of our goal in first 48 hours. So that was like a goal. And we did do that. So and I think it helped a lot because it kind of goes like center out. So we have like core community that contributes, and usually a little more than what general public would contribute. So having enough money, about 50% in the campaign, really helped to gain like the trust of people in the project happening. And also it increased our visibility as well. So once the campaign started running, we had this like group of people who are called cheerleaders. So Dr. Brainlove's cheerleaders. So they handled social media. So we created Facebook page, Tumblr, and Twitter account for Dr. Brainlove, and everyone contributed and tried to get the word out through social media. And for the perks, I think we had like a small group working. So our perks are a little bit like project of its own. Like each of them are a little bit labor intensive. So we had like something called Neural Trigger that had a circuit that has buttons to activate Dr. Brainlove's lighting system. So someone designed the circuit, someone figured out how to do the 3D printing of the mesh that's like small enough to be a necklace. So that was like a team of like 3 or 4 people. We had people who worked on creating the logos, and so that's like the group of graphic designers, and then picking hoodies that's in the right price range, and that was like another 5 people team. We had this fun perk that was actually more of a contribution to the art called Cerebral Wisdom, and it's for a $100 donation level perk. And so for this one, you can contribute your wisdom to be part of Dr. Brainlove. So you contribute a sentence, and we'll put it somewhere. So like on the bar, so we have like 691 bars here. So your message will be attached to a bar. So that's going to be a kind of fun one. And yeah, it's a lot of work. And the maintenance of the campaign took tremendous amount of hours. And the challenge was that everyone is working during the day.
Yeah.
So for instance, I have like 6 a.m. to like 5 p.m. job, and then like most of the things happens at night, but it's actually more effective to release all the updates and announcement during the day. So maybe that will be actually a nice feature to have on Indiegogo, like a timed release of announcement. Yeah. So that was like biggest challenge, just tremendous amount of work, and everyone is kind of busy.
Awesome. Yeah. Wow. That was a lot of information. I mean, it sounds like you guys had a lot of people working on the team, or do have a lot of people working on the team in terms of like perks and cheerleaders.
Yeah. So I think we have in total about like 20 to 30 people who are actively involved.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I think it's important to have like several levels of involvement available. So like some people can do it mostly at home, and then like just send out like or like some post about Dr. Brainlove from home from their Facebook. that's easy enough. But like if you had to actually go and find materials to make something, it's more time consuming.
Awesome. And Dylan. So yeah.
Well, for our planning, the way the East Bay burners do anything is that we throw a party. So we had a planning party at this wonderful house in Berkeley, and we just sat down, their drinks, cocktails. So I think we have like 15 different people that have their own signature cocktail, so we always are getting drunk. But we sat around and we talked about what kind of perks we wanted. We were like, what kind of swag do we want? So, I want a cup, and I want a bandana, or I want a necklace, or I can make a necklace, stuff like that. And then, we were so incestuous. We know who likes to do what, who does what, and so really it was just we just kind of fell into our natural roles. And I became a project manager, and a friend of mine became the videographer, and another friend became a photographer, and my friend was like, oh, I want to do necklaces, I want to make necklaces, and then another person, she was like, I want to make goggles, and so she started making goggles, and it really happened kind of just naturally. I mean, we just all did what we wanted to do, and this guy, Matt Schultz, who is working on Embrace, he told a friend of mine, basically, the more balls you juggle, the more people are willing to just stand around and watch you juggle. And the more balls you hand out to people, they'll actually pick up even more balls and they'll start juggling. And so the way I do my project management is basically, what do you want to do? And then the project forms itself around that. The project itself is very flexible. It's a community art project. So it can be whatever the community wants it to be at any point. And we took that philosophy into the Indiegogo campaign as well. And so even though we were probably ready to launch in February or March, we didn't launch until May. And that was because people were still wanting to put input and grow on it a little bit and tweak things here, tweak things there. And we had this guy, Mike Murphy, who is a project manager by day and by night. And he really helped just getting things onto like an Excel sheet. And then we could really look at it in financial terms. And we were just lucky that all that party planning, but the planning party wasn't too off from reality, and so it was really smooth for us. So I actively postponed it. I told people let's wait, because I wanted to have updates. I think updates are like the most important thing, and I want to have those updates while we were building. You can't have an update if it's just like, so we have this, we have one tentacle still. I'm building a squid, by the way. We have one tentacle just sitting in a warehouse. 3 weeks later, we still have one tentacle sitting in a warehouse. No, we want it to be like, we built 4 tentacles today. Like, we built half the head of the Kraken. And I started doing these updates that were like, we had the photographer just be around taking pictures. Really great guy, Michael J. Fox. That's his real name. And he takes these great photos. And so I would post like a photo of a volunteer and tell them like why I appreciate them and what they did and how awesome they are. And I would just go through the different volunteers that came. We've had probably like 60 people put their hands on our tentacles. And
that's a lot of hands on
that's a lot of hands
on my tentacle. And so, we're really more concerned with every decision we make is concerning the community more so than the art project or the funding campaign. We are really trying to create a movement and a strong community for community art in Oakland, and we're succeeding. So, yeah, it's awesome. And the Indiegogo, you know, we were thinking like also, what is our audience? There was actually a lot of people saying, let's not do an Indiegogo. Why do that? It's all of our friends. And you know, I along with a few other people were like, no, let's see who the people are who are our friends. We don't know they're our friends yet. Like who is in our community that isn't spoken for yet? And it turns out there's a lot. There's a lot of people. Like I'm going through the people who contributed funds, and I'm just like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And then, you know, I use that and I start reaching out to them, and then I realized that some of those people were people that I've seen come and volunteer to work on the Kraken, and so that was great. But so yeah, the plans, as far as planning goes, we were like, how do we do this in a way that it fits in with the other Indiegogo campaign, so we don't step on each other's toes, we don't take away from each other, and also how can we do this where we're having parties at the same time? Like we always do parties. We just had one Saturday. I'm going to one tonight and on Friday. So
Nice.
yeah, I know. We just party all the time.
And specialty cocktails.
Yeah, with always specialty cocktails. And one thing that I thought, you know, we just couldn't get together. Like for the perks, we have a guy, George Post, who's a friend of ours, and he's an amazing, pretty famous Burning Man photographer. He has this great book, and he donated 4 of the books to us. I guess what I'm saying is that we really looked to find people who were more like makers or had skills like leatherworking or screen printing or stuff like that. And you know, we have met more people now, but at that time it was pretty limited. So we have kind of, you know, ordered materials and then kind of assembled them. But it's less of a skilled, you know, craftsmanship thing going on. Where in previous years we've had vendors that we were friends with give us wine for wine tasting, wood, you know, glass etching, and all sorts of stuff. And you know, they just weren't around at that time when we started the campaign.
Awesome. Yeah, I think in a little bit I'm going to want to get onto fulfillment also in terms of like the perk stuff, because that's another fun issue. But in terms of the pre-launch experience, when you guys so you share this information, and just before we move on to like actually running the campaign and fulfillment, if you had like one thing that you learned when you were you know, planning everything out, and it's something that maybe you didn't do that you wish you had done, or like if you were talking to someone out there who is about to run a Burning Man campaign on Indiegogo, like for an art project they're doing for Burning Man, like what would your advice be for the pre-launch stage?
Make sure to schedule out to coincide with what you're doing, because of the flexible funding that we talked about earlier. You can get funds while you're working on this thing. Make sure that you're working on this thing at the same time that the campaign is running. That's what I would say. Also, party, yeah, just party. But no, like actually schedule out parties and have it running with that too.
Yeah, I would think of the campaign as part of like the whole like getting ready for Burning Man experience. So on that same token, just ensuring that like, you know, whatever events that you're having, you're aligning it with your campaign, and you're like speaking about your campaign at those events and getting people excited, or having some offline stuff that, you know, drives people to your campaign. I think the next thing is like scheduling your work schedule, or like, you know, buying materials or whatever you need, like during that time frame. So whoever team is working on that portion, thinking that they're different, or even if it's just you, just thinking of like, okay, I'm getting this funding, so we can buy this at this date and that date, and that will also help drive like making sure that you're reaching out and getting funding, so that you can meet your goals, so that you can buy your stuff and kind of work through that. And then I think lastly, it's just like making sure that it's mapped out. I think that's the most important thing, is like, you know, knowing like this is a date that you're going to launch, and then knowing each week that it's going to take time, and making sure you're like scheduling your updates and all that stuff. And then at the end, knowing that that's going to be time. Just thinking about that ahead of time will be good. So like in the middle of the campaign, you're like, not like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, how many more weeks do I have? What am I going to do about everything else? Like if you think about it ahead of time, during the campaign, it's going to take up a lot of your time. So it's good to just like have at least a skeleton in advance.
Something like a true planner.
Thanks, I think.
It's a compliment. Yeah, and Asako, is there anything, if you were talking to someone who was thinking of launching a campaign, you know, your advice to them for like the pre-launch period?
I think Nina and Dylan pretty much covered it, but I think that planning ahead is very important. Like the parts you can plan ahead should, like for instance, if you're printing like a T-shirt, finding like a screen planner is like something you can do ahead of time, and those things are like completely doable. But if you're running the project on the side at the same time as the campaign, it gets overwhelming very quickly. And so like knowing how long does it take, and like did you check if how much it costs, and how about shipping, do we have like people to ship all those things, and all those like logistic things, I think makes figuring that out ahead of the time would make your life much easier.
Yes. Yes.
I would actually, I totally forgot, but just to add in really quickly, on the Alien Siege machines in Indiegogo, they did not plan that, and they did not reach their goal. Yeah. So and that's because they were struggling every week. It's like a new problem arises. Our campaign was like, I pressed go, and I was just like, it's basically running itself.
Yeah. So,
plan ahead. That's the takeaway.
Yeah. I was going to say,
Use
like,
your brain.
I'm going to use my moderator hat to say that we have 11 minutes left, and I haven't been doing a great job of keeping this part, but I think we covered a lot of the things like about actually running the campaign in the pre-launch part. And then I'm going to put on my Indiegogo campaign advice hat by just saying that, like, yeah, we see over and over again, like, that planning, really great. You will not be sad that you overplanned and contingency plan for things. And yeah, you just like, as you say, like if you have it all queued up, and this includes, you know, your communications, like who are you actually planning on contributing to the campaign, there are going to be enough surprises already. So it's nice to be able to like push play and react to what happens with like knowing that you have that set up plan. And so this is to say your pitch and your video, like have them set up and know, you know, get the video ready ahead of time, like shop it around and get some feedback. Keep the video like under 3 minutes, maybe under 2 minutes even. Like
we went with like the honest video approach, like just no script, just, you know, a guy with a camera, and I was interviewing people.
Yeah, people want to see your face, so you know the people who are actually like doing the project, like get yourself and your team members in the video and just really authentically talking about what you're raising money for. You don't need, it's nice to have a super like nice produced deal, but doing like you know, my campaign for my camp is just like a bunch of like floating heads talking about like how excited they are to be working on this project and what piece they're going to be doing, and then like mixed in with video of things like from like our project.
Yeah.
And then for the goal, setting a reasonable goal is a really important thing, and I think you touched on this with the Alien Siege machine, where you know, we try to hammer this home to people that higher goal does not equal more money. You can always, you know, I think Nina talked about that Janky Barge did a stretch goal, so it's like set a goal that is reasonable, think about where the money is going to come from, and then, you know, blow it out of the park. And you can always know, like, if we raise more money, we'll, like, introduce a new concept. Oh, like, we're going to make it have flames, or, you know, make it have crazy lights, or like whatever your project is. And then you can always communicate that outwards, and that, like, gets people excited again. And then also promotion, having a strategy for communication of, like, having the circles of, you know, your core group, like, and that's really like emailing out to a core group of people for the soft launch ahead of time, and getting them, you know, not just like, hey, we're doing this campaign, but engage, like, you guys, can you email 15 people each, like a personal email that's like, yo, this campaign is really important to me, here's what we're doing, thank you so much. And like having that planned out ahead of time. And then the updates, as you talked about, with the Kraken campaign. Oh yeah, and yeah, also especially with, I mean, with any project, but I feel like especially like in my experiences with my campaign in like the burner community, I think like text messages to individuals like, yo, you know, like the campaign's like going live now, we really need you, like we want to get this momentum up, and we really want to raise 50% in the first 48 hours of the campaign. So like, we know that you intend to contribute. Can you just like?
So I want to just speak really quickly. I know we don't have that much time left, but so a lot of like the campaign is a pre-launch. So we spent an incredible time making sure that we had everything in place so that like when we launched week by week, we would be like, okay, here is what we're going to do. On Thursdays, that's going to be like our Perk Thursday, and we're going to blast it out to our networks. And that's when we started seeing campaigns roll in, or contributions roll in through the weekend. And then, so knowing that Perk Thursday was our day that we were going to like do an update and do like some kind of thing, we like a few days beforehand, we wrote the copy for, we chose the perk because we had a list of perks that we had priced out and were ready to go. We chose which one we thought would be best, like knowing the feedback that we were getting. And then like we like had like part of like our pitch video, we did some extra clips and stuff for like fun, like added bonus content because people like content. And so we like also launched that. And then like at the beginning of the week, just to re-engage people, we're like, thanks so much. You know, we did this so much over the weekend and stuff like that. And we plugged and played that every single week for the duration of our campaign. And then, you know, whenever we had our events, we also kind of had like that same general like messaging of what we were doing and getting people excited. And I think that like thinking of it in that way is very helpful, because when you have a formula and you know you're going to do it every week, it just becomes automatic.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it easy.
Definitely got that groove too.
Awesome. Wow, this has been like so much of the information I mean about running the campaign. Also, it comes up naturally in the pre-launch time, which is great. I saw a question from Jeff Schneider,
Hey, Jeff.
Which was hey Jeff, which was related to what we were talking about. So we thought we'd just say it right now, which is what tactics prove to be the most effective for promoting the projects. And we kind of touched on this already, but I just wanted to share like from our perspective. We find like email to be supremely effective, especially personal emails sent to people in the beginning, and that's second only to face-to-face communication, where you just like don't be ashamed to talk to people about your campaign, and you know, like you are asking for money, but it's like overwhelming how much people are like want to help you if you're like excited about your project. So just making sure people know.
Print up little cards to pass out. Just have them on you in your wallet, so like it's easy to tell someone about, hey, my link is igg.me, but it's easier to say, hey, here's my card. So that's also a nice little tactic. It's very cheap to produce also.
Yeah, we actually had cards that we'd give out at events, and again, like the events that you have, all your supporters are there anyway, so it's like, hey guys, like we're doing this campaign, you want a t-shirt or whatever, or like, you know, just nudging people.
You can also host events or reach out to blogs that are in your niche and see if they'll publish articles during the running of the campaign, talk to local radio shows, newspapers. Crowdfunding is pretty exciting, so people might get excited about it.
Yeah, I actually had one that was very successful. So we actually had a blog writer in our community, not someone who's directly working on the project, but one of a friend, and her name is Sarah Hillenblend, and she wrote an article about our project, and then posted it on the blog from her platform.
Absolutely.
And it's someone I know, and like she knows lots of people that is common friend of ours. So it actually was, I would almost say, more effective at reaching to people than big media post or an article.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the big media is very important too, and we do pitch to those people. But I think the more personal and give face to the project, the more effective, I think.
Yeah, for these relatively like smaller projects that we're doing in comparison to like GoKey or whatever, you know, most of our contributors, supporters, whatever you want to call them, are our friends.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, I mean, yeah, it's really easy because you see them, you're like, hey buddy, contributed to my campaign yet? No? Not buying you a drink. Or no, I'm just kidding. But no, you know, I'm talking with most of my supporters all the time. I hang out with them on a weekly basis. So. Yeah.
Cool. And as we were looking at the questions, I think we're only going to have time for a couple of them, but we picked out another one.
We can follow up directly with you afterwards also.
Yeah, we'll go over that. Well, I'll just take the time now to say that if you're asking questions and we don't get to them, we'll follow up with you directly afterwards. And if you, especially if you're able to include your email address in the comment, you can continue commenting here for the rest of the day, and we'll get back to you. But yeah, so question coming in from Will Chase over at Burning Man. Hey, Will.
Oh,
Hi,
Will. So the question is, and I'm asking it because Josh is going to answer. So Josh also, in addition to being our great support in this today, is an Indiegogo lab professor. We put on regular events where we have campaigners come in and kind of like workshop their what they're working on before they launch, and is an education master. Anyway, so the question from Will is, do you have a sense of whether the bulk of your donations come from within your community, friends and family, or from outside it?
So it really depends on the project and kind of community that you have. So for like a large campaign like GoKey, they're offering a super hip product that people want to buy, so they're not necessarily your friends. They're buying it because it's a super hit product. For a Burning Man project, you're reaching out to your initial community. So we actually have kind of a formula we talk about at Indiegogo and trying to think about your goal. At least 30% of your funds should come from your immediate social network of, friends, family, fans, your grandmother who you sent an email to.
Which happened.
Right. And then from there you kind of use that audience that you've already engaged and then try to sort of reach out to that audience and sort of expand this like snowball effect. By just reaching out further and further and further. So it really depends on the kind of project you have. I imagine for a Burning Man project, you'd be reaching out to primarily your own network. But depending on the perks that you're offering, you could also entice other folks to get involved in the project as well. And it depends on how engaging is your video too. That's another thing that comes into play is how well have you put together your campaign. So it really depends. But in general, crowdfunding is about having a crowd in place. But again, the numbers try to aim to raise at least 30% from your initial audience.
Okay, we're almost completely out of time, but just wanted to thank you guys so much for being here, and then go around with one more just like piece of advice that you have for someone who is thinking of running a campaign, like specifically for a Burning Man project.
Yeah. Well, for that, the one piece of advice that I would think of is that I hear a lot from people that feel like they are they don't want to ask their friends for money. They don't ask the community for money. They kind of see this as sort of shiesty. And to them, I would say, don't worry about it. There's always been patronage in art, and this is just the one time where the people, your community, your friends, are basically democratically giving patronage to your art. And so I would say, don't worry about it.
Awesome.
Just do your art. Make it happen.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you all for being here. It's been a wonderful hour.
Thank you.
And my advice would be, along with making sure you have a plan, is fulfilling your plan. So your perks. So at the beginning, make sure that like you're costing out it and including shipping and how much it will cost to produce whatever item you're going to do. And then in terms of like after your campaign's done, you're going to want some break. So make sure like when you're telling people when your perks are going to be fulfilled, you give yourself like a month or so cushion if you need it, if you don't have a big team. And then when you're fulfilling your perks, it's going to take some time, so make a party out of it probably. Get some cocktails and bring your friends and like ship it all together. And if you're in San Francisco, you can use Ship, SHYP. Abigail, who's on my team, is also a burner. She works there. She can like maybe talk to you about that a little bit, but that's just some tips.
Awesome. Any other parting words of wisdom?
Yeah, so I guess like this is a little bit different inputs, I guess, but I think there are lots of Burning Man campaigns on Indiegogo and Kickstarters. So I think one really important thing that you can think about for success is probably to think about what makes your campaign unique and different from all the others. So in our case, we wanted to bring this Dr. Brainlove to the Burning Man, but we also wanted to have this art piece for people who doesn't go to Burning Man as well. So we are starting to reach out to science museums and schools in the area. We're actually already talking to various science festivals to bring Dr. Brainlove to their event in October. And I think that actually kind of naturally happened because we had this like campaign and there's enough momentum and publicity going, and then we wanted something beyond Burning Man as well. And it was like very synergistic process of like the publicity helping out for us to get this contact to make it something bigger and greater than Burning Man. So I think that's my advice, to think beyond Burning Man as well.
Yeah, I love that, and I really hope that I end up seeing
Yeah,
the Exploratorium or something.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's the perfect place for it.
Yeah, wow. I feel like there's so many more things that I want to talk to you guys about, but
There
promise
has
an
to be
hour
like a
we've already
part
gone
two.
over. I know.
Part two some other time.
I think we're definitely going to think of how to do some kind of like follow-up to get this information in written form also, so it can be available to the world on an ongoing basis. And additionally, this Hangout on Air is just going to go straight up on YouTube, so it will be accessible in perpetuity for people to come check out. And to everyone out there watching, feel free to keep adding comments on the video, and we'll get back to you. Yeah.
Yay.
So I guess that's it. Thanks so much. Yeah, Dylan, Asako, Nina, Josh. Yeah. Have a great day.
See you guys.
Start your draft campaigns.
I will.
Bye, Will.